What is going on, everybody? It's another episode of Denmark and Marsh. I'm Dylan Denmark. That is Graham Marsh after a Florida loss to the Georgia Bulldogs yet again, 34-20. Graham, we'll talk about the game and everything that transpired, but obviously the biggest thing that happened during the game was the DJ Lagway injury. Me and you and I both went to the game, but we didn't sit together.
Yeah, no, listen. The biggest thing that happened in the game is you and I went.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing.
Yes, that was the biggest thing. I sat in the corner of the end zone. Shout out to Tony Aguilini for hooking me up with a ticket that he had.
Shout out Tony.
And so DJ goes down, and I'm like, okay, he probably tweaked his ankle or something. He'll be all right. And then coaches go out there, and then another 15 seconds go by, and then another 30 seconds go by. I'm like, this isn't good. Then I see it wasn't a cop; it was like a paramedic. He did this for the car. I'm like, no, there's no way this is happening. There's no way that this dude is about to get carted off in the first half of the game. And then I forget who it was, if it was the players or the coaches that literally picked him up off the field to the car, and he couldn't put any pressure on the hamstring. Napier says it's a pretty significant injury, so you can pretty much chalk that up for him to be done for the rest of the year. Whenever that happened, all of the energy in the stadium left. And then Florida was in the game the entire game. It wasn't like that Florida was down, 2 touchdowns, or they had the lead. Georgia tied it. Georgia took the lead. Florida tied it. And it didn't really feel like Florida's side really had any juice up until like the fourth quarter when Florida scored that last touchdown.
Yeah, Lewis in the chat asked, where's Tranweb? Tranweb's still injured. I saw him on the sideline. He wasn't dressed on or anything. His injury is a little more severe than I thought it was going to be, apparently, because he's still not back. But, yeah, Dylan, it was – Gators get out to the lead. Lagway was playing really well, man. And, God, it is unbelievable how well he throws that deep ball. That's special stuff. Like, we're going to watch DJ Lagway throw deep balls on Sundays here in a couple of years for sure. Man, they hung around the entire game. I don't know what that defense has figured out, but they figured something out. And they're so much better than they were at the beginning of the year. Even the drives that Georgia did score, Florida made them earn it. They had to go down the field. It wasn't a whole lot of busted coverages, gigantic. There are a few chunk plays here and there, but not a lot of someone's wide open 60 yards down the field type of stuff that was happening early on in the season. I felt like they were getting to Carson back. They had some good pressure yesterday. Getting home when they were there, when the plays were there to be made. So hats off to the defense for sure. Whatever Roberts and Armstrong and the players have figured out, it's whatever they've changed has worked, because they're night and day better than they were at the beginning of the season. And that was the main reason yesterday they were able to kind of stick with it. And then they scored when they had to until the end of the game. Man, it was just so deflating when Lagway got hurt, because I'm like, hand up. I know we do a Gator podcast here, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to the audience and tell you guys that I had any film study on Aiden Warner done before he went into the game. So I had no idea what to expect. I liked the fact that his first play, I think it was literally his first play, and they threw it deep. I liked that because you didn't know that was happening. I didn't know that was happening. Kirby Smart didn't know that was happening. It was one time in Billy Napier's life, he was actually unpredictable. And they threw it deep, and I was like, okay, like maybe, they didn't complete it, but maybe they'll still take some deep shots, keep Georgia guessing, and not let them just totally sell off for the run. Well, the play calling got pretty damn predictable after that. And I'm not going to blame – I guess I can kind of blame Billy for that, but at the same time, it's like, you're your third-string quarterback, man. Like, who in the country is going to be on the third-string quarterback against Georgia and not be predictable play calling? Like, everybody would. Chris House, has any update on Lagway? We were just talking about it. We don't have any specific updates, but yet, obviously, Billy's going to tell us more this week when he speaks to the media. But I wouldn't, Chris, if I were you, I wouldn't plan on him playing anytime soon. I mean, you don't get carted off the field with a hamstring and that be something you come back from next week. So no specific updates, but I wouldn't expect anything soon. Dylan, it's going to be the Aiden Warner show moving forward, probably here for a minute, or the Clay Millen show if it didn't work out for Warner. I don't know. I don't really. They're not going to go to Texas with Aiden Warner and win that game. So it's really
no. And I mean, yesterday, as if you weren't already banged up going into the game, you didn't have Montrell Johnson play. Tryon Webb didn't play. You obviously Graham Mertz is done for the year, and then Jason Marshall gets hurt 2 weeks ago. He's done for the year. Both of your starting corners at one point got hurt in the game. There was a lot of injuries that happened in the game. And it's only going to compile up because you play a physical team that goes downhill in Georgia. And then Texas is going to do the same thing. And then you still have LSU and Ole Miss.
Texas has better weapons, by the way, to test your corners. Georgia didn't have great weapons on the outside to really take the top off like they have in years past. The Lad McConkey's, the Brock Bowers of the world that can really hurt your secondary deep. Texas will. Isaiah Bond is going to stress these guys. They're going to get down the field and make this a little bit tougher next week.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you, me, and everybody else that watched the game was expecting it to be probably close in the half, and then Georgia probably is going to run away with it in the second half. I was very surprised at how Florida was able to stay in the game, even with the third string quarterback, because that third string quarterback wasn't getting any starting reps all spring, all summer, in fall camp, into the year until maybe the last couple of weeks, after Graham Mertz got hurt. That is very impressive, and for him to, I mean, we all knew he didn't stand a chance, and making half the throws that he did. But Billy Napier, and I'm not one of those people that usually has said this. Billy Napier deserves a lot of credit for what he did in that game. They were down many guys. The Gator defense forces 3 turnovers. And it's something we said. What was it on our show Thursday? This game is going to come down to Georgia's offense and what they want to do. And I don't know if you felt like this. I don't know why Georgia's offense didn't run the ball more. It seemed like every time they ran the ball, they got like 3 or 4 yards a clip at minimum, and they kept throwing the ball.
Dylan, what I wasn't understanding, and not just running the ball, but taking advantage of the sidelines, they didn't want to do it. But it felt like one of their big chunk plays was an end around where they fake the draw and they get all the way around, and I forget who had the ball, but it ended up being like a 25 or 30-yard play. To me, Florida was crashing pretty hard to stop the run up the middle, and I think that was a little bit of a reason they were able to get to Carson Beck a little bit when they were throwing the ball too, because they were sending a couple extras. Contain was a problem for the Gators yesterday that Georgia didn't really ever test all that hard. If they had run some jet sweeps and stuff, Dylan, I think those could have gone for big gains. I agree with you. I don't know why they didn't take the air out of the ball more and do more stuff like that. And even screen game was really working for them too. But they didn't go. They didn't even go to it as much as I thought they should have. And they went to it a lot. Ducati says that's not been Bobo's focus. Throwing the ball is priority over running. Sure, but during the game, you got to feel out what's working and what's not, right? We talk about that with Billy Napier all the time. Like, something that's been aggravating in the past with fans is when things have been working offensively and Billy wants to stick to the couple of things that he likes to do, and that's frustrating because a good play caller should be able to say, okay, that's not what's working today. If I'm a Georgia fan today, I'm pretty upset with how they called the game. I'm pretty upset with Carson Beck. He did not play well. Oh my God, he had a really, really tough day.
Isn't it amazing? Like, if you were to say before the game, to walk up to a person that doesn't know anything about college football, say one guy is preseason All-American, expected to be number 1 pick in the draft, and the other guy's a true freshman. Talking about Lagway.
Yeah,
you would not have guessed the two were that in the preseason.
Yeah, no, not at all. And by the way, Carson Beck, a high recruit himself back in the day. It didn't like Carson Beck was this it wasn't like he was Kyle Trask as a recruit, right, that nobody wanted or whatever. Like Carson Beck was, when he committed to Georgia instead of Florida, that was like a big deal. And Florida got Anthony Richardson and Georgia got Carson Beck. Everybody kind of remembers that. Yeah, man. I want to go back to something you said a minute ago, Dylan, because I do agree. And someone in the comments already mentioned how they thought yesterday's game wasn't on Billy, and I agree. It's weird, Dylan, because I think there's kind of two camps of Gator fan right now, and I don't know if either one is wrong. And I don't think you're stupid for being in either camp. I think one is from the here and now, looking at the positive side of this and saying, okay, man, this team, for whatever reason, has really started to play better, has really started to figure it out. After those first 3 weeks and how rough it was, for them to be able to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, especially on defense, figure something out, give you some life, get some nice wins like UCF and Kentucky, be competitive against Tennessee and Georgia, and have your freshman QB, who again sucks, he got hurt, but to have him play as well as he had been playing, like, man, that's a lot to be optimistic about as a Gator fan. And moving forward with Billy Napier, it's like, okay, maybe they got something here. Maybe you play out the stretch for the rest of this year, and you go in next year kind of clear head, look forward and see what this could be, because this could be a sign of some good stuff to come down the road. And maybe it's not time to blow everything up, and maybe it's time to give him that fourth year and really let this go because of what he's shown these last couple of weeks. That's, to be honest with you, that's kind of the camp I'm in right now. But the other camp is, wait a second, this guy's in year 3. And from the macro perspective, the University of Florida should not be a 14-point underdog to Georgia in year 3. And I think that's fair. I don't know if I'm in that camp, but I think that's fair. So it's kind of a weird crossroads here, Dylan. I don't know which camp you're in, but it's sort of an interesting kind of fork in the road, I think, for Gator fans.
I put a lot of stake into this game. I was thinking if Florida had gotten blown out, like if Georgia had won 37-13,
Carnell comments, my guys. Carnell, we appreciate you, my boy. Shout out. Go ahead.
I was going to come on here right after the game, and I was going to say there's no way Billy should survive it. So you can't go into year 3, and regardless if you would have upset a team the next couple of weeks and say, and he were to somehow keep his job, whoever made the decision, whether it be the boosters or the AD, Scott Strickland, they would be making the decision that if they would have kept Billy Napier, if Florida had gotten blown out in this game, that they're okay with mediocrity. That's where my headspace was kind of going to in this game. And then after yesterday, I mean, you and everybody else, I'm sure that if DJ Lagway would have probably played, it would have been a field goal game at worst. Florida probably wins the game. And it's just hard not to think about that when you're making these decisions for a guy that's going to stay for another year.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a couple comments here. Rob says, heck no, Marsh. We literally have the worst coach in the SEC. Name another coach who'd do worse with this roster. But part of what you're saying in that comment is they have a good roster. Who built that? You know what I mean? So, like, you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth like that. Like, these young players that Billy Napier recruited are clearly starting to play well. He deserves credit for that. Again, I'm not saying that you're an idiot if you think Billy's got to go, because I understand the point from the macro that 2.5 years in, he's got to be better. I'm just also saying now, if you're in the camp of, hey, maybe he might deserve a little more time, I also don't think you're crazy. Fragrance comments, Devin Moore gets hurt during film study. Fragrance, I feel you, man. He does, bro. I like Devin Moore as a player, but God, he cannot stay on the field. He cannot stay upright. Chad Allen says, could have won Tennessee and Georgia games. We were not far off. And that's kind of, I think, so back to back here, Dylan, in our comments. One from Facebook, one from YouTube. Chad says, could have won Tennessee and Georgia games. We're not far off. Rob says, name a coach who would do worse with this roster. Those two comments kind of explain exactly what I'm talking about, right? You have these two camps, and I think the camp that matters is the camp that Scott Strickland or the boosters or whoever's going to make that decision is in. And I tend to believe he's going to be in the camp of giving Billy this fourth year.
Yeah, that's where I stand right now. I think they'll get waxed by Texas because you just don't have the personnel to compete with them. And then
go ahead, sir.
No, you got
well, I was gonna say like, and a couple of people in the comments have been saying stuff like, how would a different coach do whatever. So I think it's important to say like, look, man, like, I get being frustrated after the game that we lost to Georgia, and Billy Napier's never beaten them. This is 3 years in a row, but first of all, 3 years in a row for Billy, 4 years in a row for the program. If you were to tell us at the beginning of the game that DJ Lagway is going to be carted off the field and Aiden Warner is going to have to play more than half of the game, not a single person in these comments would have said, yeah, they're going to win the game. Like, come on. And Dustin said, you just put Dustin's comment, we have pretty much the same schedule next year. And Billy Napier brings back a lot of the same defense players and DJ Lagway. They win 8 or 9 games next year. Next year, for sure, they're not that far off. I kind of agree. That's kind of where I'm at. Are you there, Dylan? What do you think? Like, regardless of if you think it's time to move on or not, say right now they do. FSU isn't guaranteed at this point. Lane, stop. FSU is the worst. That's the worst FSU team I've ever seen.
North Carolina had 300 yards rushing on them yesterday.
Yeah. I think Lane, I think you could go out there at quarterback against Florida State and beat them. They are horrendous. But do you believe that, Dylan? If they were to hang on to Napier and give him this next year, do you believe this is an 8 or 9 win team?
Yeah, I mean the roster is, but I mean, how many of these guys are going to leave and hit the portal? That's the main question.
I see. That's a good point, but I believe if Billy is the coach, I believe there won't be a ton of attrition. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think they were. I'm just going back to last year when, you're going to year 3 and more people are of the opinion of, okay, you're going to have these guys, but then ETN leaves and then Princely also leaves. It's like, okay, there goes your best offensive playmaker and then your best defensive guy who sets the edge for you. I don't think that's going to happen with this class because so many of your best players are all freshmen. So if they are coming into your program when you haven't been good the 2 previous years before they got to your program, and this is the best they've done in your tenure, you're kind of showing signs that you believe in the program and you believe where it's going. Now, obviously, if you could still make a decision, leave to go elsewhere, if somebody's going to give you, double the money at another program, that's another thing. But I don't have a sense that Lagway is going to go anywhere. I don't have the sense that Ball is going to go anywhere or any of the main guys. And I don't know. I haven't even really looked at the roster. I don't know how many seniors that are on this team that are going to be, leaving.
It would be Badger is a senior and DK is a senior. Those guys would be good, but and they've been really good players this year. So I'm not no disrespect to them whatsoever. Those guys are replaceable in the portal though. Like there's another Chim DK in the portal, right? There's another Elijah Badger in the portal. Like we're talking these special guys that Napier has recruited. Like there's not another Lagway sitting in the portal that can throw the ball deep like he can, that can move like he can. That's clearly going to be a good NFL player one day. Ball, to your point, I don't know that there's just going to be a Jaden Ball sitting there in the portal next year. We'd have to see what happens. But to me, Dylan, because Rob commented a second ago, okay, what if Napier, okay, if you keep Billy and Lagway decided to leave anyways, would you still want to keep him? Obviously not. Like, of course not. Like, you got to know that some of those top guys are going to stay. Because if Stomp says, wow, so winning 8 or 9 at UF is a new standard. I mean, no, it's not. Like, you obviously want to get to championship standards, but, like, you got to be realistic here, too. Like, things were bad at the end of the Mullen era. They fell apart. Like, I believe it's more because Florida's had a hiring problem instead of a firing problem, but they are on a hamster wheel of coaches. So if you believe that you don't need to blow it up and start over, I probably wouldn't at this point. I mentioned like every comment. My brain's kind of scrambling now, but like, I just think, I wouldn't blow it up at this point. Is I guess just where I'm at, kind of to sum it all up, Dylan.
Yeah, I'm with you there pretty much. I'm just scanning the roster. Most of these guys that are starting on both sides of the ball are coming back. You have a few guys that are leaving, but for the most part, most of the guys are coming back for another year. And the schedule is the same. This is something I was going to bring up too, to piggyback what I was saying about if Florida got gotten blown out. Florida has the same schedule next year. The only thing they flip is UCF is out and they play South Florida. That's the only difference.
And theoretically speaking, that should be an easier game for the game. But USF's been they've been kind of Jekyll and Hyde this year, so who knows what they'll be like next year. But yeah, the schedule's still going to be hard, really hard. I mean, if this 4 teams in the ACC, they have 6 or 7 wins
minimum. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, look at the SEC right now. Texas A&M didn't have a conference win, went into Columbia, South Carolina, and got blown out in the second half.
Yeah.
And South Carolina has 3 losses, and South Carolina is a decent team. I mean, we've said this over and over again. The SEC has become like the NFL, or not the SEC, but college football in general at the top. You can be beaten by any decent team on a week-to-week basis, and it's always been that way. But it was that way for like the good teams, but they could have like one slip-up game. You go on the road, okay, you come out flat and you lose that game maybe. No, it's like it's every week now. I mean,
it's always been that way in the SEC, typically with the exception of normally like the 2 best teams are just beating the hell out of everybody they play. That is not the same anymore, and I think that's more what you're saying.
Yeah. So let's talk about the recruiting for standpoints. We're getting a lot of comments here. He's in the 50s. Obviously, that's not where you want to be November 3rd when you're right at a month away from recruiting. I mean, is this something where you might try to get a guy or two in the next couple of weeks, and then right after the Florida State game, you just hit the recruiting trail heavy? Does Napier go portal heavy and rely on guys that have more experience and know what a college program is like? What does Billy do for the next month or so with getting guys in the program?
Win games. Yeah, I mean, seriously, because look, we all know why the class is as low as it is. It's because Mario Cristobal and Kirby Smart and Mike Norvell, which that was a little bit ironic right now with Mike Norvell, but all of these teams that Florida competes with for recruits, you best believe those coaches and their assistants and whoever's there, they are sitting in their living room for guys that are considering Florida and saying, do you know who their coach is going to be next year? Because I sure don't. That's why. That's why Florida's class is dropping. And we all know that. Everybody in the comments understands that. You win a couple of games and make it clear and obvious that you're not going anywhere for the next season, they could salvage it a bit. They're obviously not going to finish at 48 or whatever they are now. They're obviously going to finish higher than that. But you get to a class that's maybe within the 20s somewhere, like finishing the teens somewhere, which isn't great. It's not ideal, especially because Napier's supposed to be a recruiter. But you can get to something respectable, and then I think, to your point, this is the off season that you have to really attack the portal. And what becomes even more important than getting that recruiting class up to something respectable is you just can't let your current roster bottom out. You've got really good young players, and that's the entire reason behind wanting to potentially keep Napier and see what a year 4 looks like. But to Rob's point earlier, asking, well, what if Lagway transfers? Yeah, if Lagway leaves and Jaden Baugh and Aaron Gates and these young guys that are making plays, like, then he's really got to go, because that changes the whole dynamic of this. Like, your current roster cannot bottom out. If I'm giving you a year 4, Billy, that's with the understanding that the dudes on your roster right now that are making plays and showing promise are going to be Gators next year, plus some portal guys and whoever you might get. And then you win enough games, and it becomes clear that Napier's there for the long haul. I believe, and I think you believe too, what we've seen of him recruiting-wise, he can get that back on track. That part I'm not as concerned about. It's not going to be a Dan Mullen situation where he seemingly quits on recruiting. But they're going to have to, and this I feel for Napier in this way. He's still got to probably figure out a way to pull LSU or Ole Miss out of his ass, I think, even with a third string. Because I think it's fair, like, it's not fair that you're asking him to do that with a third-string quarterback, but I think it's also fair to say, no, wait a second. Texas A&M ran you out of your own building when you had Lagway and Mertz. Miami embarrassed you when you had Lagway and Mertz. Just because it was earlier in the season and just because Florida's clearly a better team now doesn't mean you get a full pass for it. So I think it's fair to say, okay, it sucks now. Really sucks you lost your quarterbacks. That doesn't change the fact that I think you still got to figure out your way to 6 wins.
Yeah, and I've seen some people are popping in about the portal. The portal's boom or bust. I mean, Florida State 2 years ago went heavy portal, went undefeated, went 13-0. They used the portal again this year, and it didn't work out for them because they invested in a bad quarterback and they had a couple bad things. So I mean, it's all subjective to how you use it. And I mean, just look at what Napier did in his first year. His best players were from the portal with Ricky Pearsall, with Montrell Johnson, or Cyrus Torrance. Now, I mean, I know that 2 of those guys were with him at Louisiana. But those are guys from the portal. And then you look a year later, going into year 3 and the year 2 offseason, Billy didn't really get guys out of the portal. He did, but they didn't produce. Cameron Jackson was supposed to be a big addition. Didn't really produce this first year. So it's all subjective to how the game is played and what you would want to do. Yeah, I hate having this Billy conversation, man, over and over again, and I know everybody's so heated about it, but it's such a week-to-week topic. You asked us a month ago, it was like, yeah, he's got blown out twice, he's not keeping his job. And then you rattle off, you have a good 3-game stretch, should have beaten Tennessee, you feel like you should have been 3-0 in the month of October, and now you're going to the stretch with a quarterback that nobody's ever heard of. Nobody knows anything about him other than he came from Yale. And it's like it'll be almost a miracle if you can win a game with him against Texas, Ole Miss, or LSU.
And what have we said all season, Dylan, and before the season about amount of wins, how many wins does he need to keep his job, blah, blah, blah. It's how it looks, right? And first 3 weeks of the season, 2 out of those 3 games, Samford being the third, between Miami and A&M, it could not have looked worse. It looked real bad, right? And we were on record. I mean, people can go back and find our podcast clips. I said it. You said it. I would have fired him walking off the field against A&M. And I said that at the time. You said that. You agreed with me at the time, I'm pretty sure. Because it looked that bad. And I don't think Florida's athletic department would have been wrong to do that. That said, since then, it's looked a hell of a lot better, and it's translated to a couple of nice wins. And they've been competitive against really good teams that are better than them. So we have to change the argument if they've changed their play. And they have. So, but again, to something I said a minute ago, one thing I am worried about is, so they got 4 games left now. One thing I am worried about is if they do throw up a couple stinkers here in the next couple weeks, I think with both quarterbacks getting hurt, Scott Strickland has enough of an excuse to hang on to Napier regardless. And that worries me a little bit because if they start to regress again, then I think he needs to go. As long as their stock is still rising, then I don't have a problem with giving him a year 4. But look, man, you can't just mail it in because Lagway got hurt. Like these next couple games, I'm not saying you got to go to Austin and win. You're not going to do that, especially with a third-string quarterback. And that game might get out of hand. Who knows? But LSU, Ole Miss, you got to beat Florida State still, no matter what. No excuses. They are horrendous. And then LSU and Ole Miss, you got to find a way to win one. You got to be competitive in the other still.
Yeah, it's gonna.
Again, you're not. And the reason you're not getting this pass is because of how they play at the beginning of the year.
The only way that Florida is going to beat a team that they should in the next couple weeks is if their defense or special teams finds a way to score a touchdown or put the offense in a great field position for them to score a couple of times. Because I don't know about you, but from where I was sitting, when Warner came in the game, he threw that deep shot. It was incomplete. All right, whatever. And then when they threw that bubble, I think it was DK that got waxed. Was that him? They had that hard hit.
Yeah, on the screen.
Yeah. Then when they overturned
the targeting originally and reversed it.
Yeah. That throw he made, it seemed like it took a lot of like arm strength for him to make that throw. And so everybody's going to be looking at, and they're going to be loading the box. The only thing is going to be, how is this defense going to do the next couple of weeks? Is this defense going to continue like they've done the last 4 games, which is play almost lights out? And, if you do get down the field like Georgia was doing, you're going to have to really, execute and not give the easy stuff like Florida's defense did in the first couple of weeks. I think that's going to be a large part in, what's going to be considered for Napier keeping his job next year. And, we'll see. As of right now, I think he'll be coaching in 25. But that's just me sitting here November 3rd. There's still a lot of ball to be played, man. A lot of ball to be played. Florida could find a way to win 2 more games down the stretch.
You got a month left.
Yeah, an entire month. And a lot of things can change from here and now.
Well, and then that's kind of the point is like how different was our conversation a month ago about this whole thing, right? And what you just said is what I've been trying to preach all season. After the A&M game, I would have fired him. But after that, they started playing better. He's earned, if anything, Napier has earned the right to be able to keep playing football and keep trying to change our minds. And again, if it bottoms out at the end of the year, I would still can him and move for something else. But if they keep playing well and it looks good, then and these young guys are ascending, and you have reason to believe the guys that are freshmen and sophomores right now that'll be juniors and sophomores next year and can really contribute. I mean, I like seeing a lot of comments this podcast, like talking about how good Aaron Gates looks. Yeah, he looks amazing. For every time we talk about a guy regressing or not playing well, like if there's someone like that, you gotta give that coaching staff credit too. Like Ron Roberts and Austin Armstrong, whatever they figured out is working. So in the here and now, Dylan, I was really pleasantly surprised with how competitive they were yesterday. And the Texas game next week, are you at the point where it's like they got to go to Austin, Texas is really good, they got a third string, like they're probably just going to get killed and you're kind of resigned to that? Or are you like, I expect them to show some fight and be competitive again?
I expect them to get slaughtered. That's where when you play an emotional game like this and you have all the injuries they do, and I forget, who did Texas play yesterday, or did they even play? Yeah, but I just don't see how a Florida team can come back and play well. They might play good for a little bit, and then I don't see it being a game in the second half.
Yeah. Michael just made this kind of a long comment, so I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but just I want to pick one little sentence out of it that I think is interesting about let's see how Kiffin does next week against Georgia. That's a good point, because what if Ole Miss gets killed? What if they lose by 20, which could happen, and they got their starter, and this is the guy everybody wants offensively, and this is the guy you and I have pounded the table for. You and I want Lane Kiffin. Just for him to not look as competitive as Billy did with a third stringer? Like that would be interesting to watch. Georgia beats a lot of people bad. Like, show me the coach that would be on their third string quarterback in the SEC against Georgia that you would expect to be competitive, right? What if that Alabama game, that crazy game of the century, Alabama versus Georgia, what if Milroe went down? Bama would have gotten killed probably. So, like, look, Billy Napier's done some indefensible stuff, but I think as of late, you got to give him credit, like you said at the very beginning of the show.
Yep, and time will tell. Lagway's supposed to get an MRI today, and he said we'll know more details on what the length of his injury. I'm expecting him to be done for the year, but the injury report comes out every Wednesday nights for the guys who are going to be game time decisions or going to be out. So you'll wait for those. Hopefully Trey Wilson can come back, and Montreal Webb and some of these guys like Montrell Johnson yesterday warmed up. I think was suited up, ready to go, but they didn't want to play him. Billy said he wasn't ready to go. So hopefully you get some guys like that back in the fold, and that might make a difference in the Texas game and down the stretch. But we'll see how it goes, and just it's a lot of oxygen that Florida had going into the Georgia game has been lost, at least for me. I mean, I really don't have any hopes for any competitiveness, at least on the offensive side of the ball. It's just because happiness is based off expectation, man. When you had Lagway, you had a chance to be in any game. Now it's, man, just throw a piece of paper up and whatever sticks, just run with it.
Yeah. Chris comments something that I want to bring up because I disagree with it in YouTube. Chris says this is 2013 all over again. Fully gave Muschamp a do-over and brought him back in 2014 because of injuries. Strickland will have to do the same for Napier. I don't agree with that. No, I don't think that's true because that team didn't have this type of quarterback production. Driscoll was a good player, but like what Lagway's ceiling is, I think is higher. Like I think Lagway has a ceiling to be like a good NFL starter. Driscoll's been a journeyman. He's been all right, and that's great. And I know it was a highly touted recruit, and they were, but that was a team that was all defense and run the ball, and they have the highly touted quarterback recruiting, but the production wasn't there. You're seeing on the field against Georgia what Lagway could be. I'm not saying he wasn't Peyton Manning out there yesterday. Like, it's not like he was unstoppable, but like when you see the flashes and you see what he can be, and you can clearly tell that he just needs more reps, more experience, which is the main reason that really sucks he got hurt, because this is going to be really valuable. Another month's worth of experience playing football. But I don't agree that it's 2013 all over again, because I think that team was stocked down, and I think this team is stocked up.
Yeah, well, and also too, Muschamp just had a 11-win season 2012. So you can blame injuries and Florida had an egregious amount of injuries. It wasn't like a couple of guys. It was like over 15 guys had like season-ending injuries or something like that. It was something stupid. But yeah, I mean, everything is different. So, all right, that's about all I got, Graham.
Yes, sir. One thing I want to say, one last thing is, everybody commenting, everybody engaging and stuff. We obviously really appreciate you guys as always. Dylan and I love coming on here and chopping it up and talking ball, and we're gonna be here for this foreseeable future. So y'all keep tapping in with us, keep talking ball, agree with us, disagree with us. We love it. That's what we do, man. We like discourse. We like engaging. I like telling Dylan he's wrong. He likes telling me I'm wrong. Dylan, Gator basketball tipping off Monday. Your thoughts?
8:30 is past my bedtime, so I won't be watching.
I will be there in ViStar. Going to the game with my dad. I'm really excited because he and I haven't gotten to go to a basketball game in a long time. But I'll be there at the game, watching the boys tip off. Walter Clayton Jr. in the gang. I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a really good year for Gator basketball. I'm going to make you talk Gator basketball.
Really?
Yeah. So we're going to talk. We're going to break down their defensive strategies and whatnot. No, not really. We're not going to get probably that into the nitty-gritty, but we are going to talk Gator basketball because I think they're going to be really good, and I'm really excited. And look, man, they got a month left. Let's see what happens. I really got no idea what the conversation is going to be in a month from now, and I think that's the beauty of the college football season. If we knew, it wouldn't be as fun, right?
This is true. It is a unscripted reality show, as some people say. That's what the sports world is.
Man, how fun. Last thing is, I know you got to go, but I promise last thing. How fun has college football been this year, bro? Oh my God! Man.
Regardless of them extending the 12-team playoff, even if they had 4, it's still a crazy year, man. I mean, like,
such a crazy year. Just good games all the time, dude. Dude, I love Florida Georgia. Florida Georgia is my favorite days of the year. Don't get me wrong. I love like what we do. We go hang out with our buddy Travis, who's got a boat, and we boat over to the game and go do tailgates, and it's so much fun. I love it. Right? It's one of the best days in all of Jacksonville. The one negative is I don't get to watch other college football.
Yeah,
I get Ohio State, Penn State at noon. I'm like, dude, like.
I watched the least amount of college football in years yesterday. I watched a little bit here and there to tailgate from Ohio State, Penn State, the Arkansas game, and then I got home. I watched a little bit of the Tennessee game, and then I fell asleep. I was just
Florida Georgia's a long day, man. It's a marathon, dude. once you get. We were boating back over, and we were talking about going out to the bars, and a couple people were like, "Should we go home first?" I'm like, "You go home first. You ain't leaving your house. Dude.
Yeah,
you get comfy on that couch. It's game over, bro."
Yeah, I went home and I took a shower. On that.
Florida was a long day.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yep. So, all right, y'all. We'll give y'all a show Tuesday. Breakdown Florida USF for Monday, and whatever Billy Napier says at the podium tomorrow. Till then, see y'all.
Yes, sir.